This training module is designed to give some clarity to the sometimes confusing world of RFID technology, the applicable standards, and the key market brands. Individuals of all knowledge levels will have a takeaway from this module, and hopefully it will empower and educate. During this module, we will cover a number of different topics. These will include product materials, industry terminology, methods and techniques to identify the technology installed, antenna design, industry brands and the technologies utilized within these brands, and the information required when ordering RFID cards. So when we talk about materials, we're talking about the substrates used to manufacture the cards that the customer uses. We often use a catch-all such as plastic or PVC, but this is often a misnomer, as there are several types of materials used to manufacture these cards. PVC, the most common material used in card manufacture, with more than 40 million tons produced each year. PVC is getting an increasingly bad rep as it's not biodegradable and finally ends up in landfill or, regrettably, the ocean. It can, however, be recycled more than once, but its half-life is more than 140 years. PVC PET. This card is produced as a composite card and is more robust than a simple PVC card, but considerably more expensive. This card is recyclable and the PET element is fully biodegradable. PETG. This card is the most expensive of all the polymer-based cards, but is robust and has the benefit of being 100% recyclable. There are an increasing number of alternative materials that RFID cards can be made out of, and there is a growing market for these 100% recyclable materials. These materials include, but are not exclusively, paper, bamboo, and various light woods. Industry terminology and speak can be a little confusing, with much of the terminology being interchangeable. The three most commonly used phrases are RFID, which stands for Radio Frequency Identity Device, NFC, Near Field Communication, and the contactless phraseology, or tap and go, which is the most commonly used. For the purposes of this module, we'll use the acronym RFID to make life easy. RFID cards operate at one of three frequencies, and these are covered under low frequency, or LF, high frequency, HF, and ultra high frequency, UHF. These frequencies have different performance characteristics and as a result are used typically in different applications. LF cards operate at 125 kHz and are typically used for access control. They have no intelligent processing capabilities and have very limited security. The most common brands in the South African market are owned by HID and Impro. HF cards operate at 13.56 MHz and are used in many markets, including access control, transport, and the cashless environments. It's basically a small computer inside a card. The most common brands in the market are MyFair, Desfire, and iClass. UHF cards operate at 860 MHz and are used in access control and asset tracking typically, with read ranges possible of between 6 to 10 meters. The most common brand in the South African market would be NEDAP, with the Alien Higgs and Monza chipsets being the most prevalent. One of the most difficult things to do, and the thing we spend most of our time trying to achieve, is identifying the technology the customer has within his piece of plain white PVC. There are a couple of tools available to you which will enable you to speed this process of identification up. NXP Tag Info is an application available from all the stores and is available for all Android devices and iPhone 11 onwards, where the NFC capability is enabled. Using the application will reveal a MyFair or Desfire card's full information, including chip type, memory size, and any relevant information regarding encoding. Another tool we use commonly to identify technology within a card is a torch. It will come as some surprise to some of you that a very bright light shone through a PVC card will reveal the antenna and chip position inside the PVC. The shape of this antenna and the position of the chip will help you identify the technology that lies within the card. So, having now sourced your high-tech detection device, your torch, you shine this light through the card where one or more of the following shapes will become immediately apparent. If you find a circular antenna within the card, you're looking at a 125 kHz card, and it will either be an HID proximity card or EM4102 technology. You have eliminated immediately the possibility of the card being a high frequency or an ultra high frequency card. If it is an HID proximity card, it will have the famous blue HID brick on the card, and if it is missing this symbol, then you are most likely looking at an EM4102 card. If you find a rectangular antenna within your PVC, then you're looking at a high frequency card, and you can dispense with investigating whether it is 125 kHz. At this point, you will open your NXP Tag Info application to establish exactly what variant of high frequency card you have in your hand. If you have the rarity of seeing an antenna with a funky shape, then you are most likely looking at an ultra high frequency card. You will be able to confirm this with the customer by establishing that the readers that they are using currently are indeed long-range ones. There are a number of options to combine the different variants into one card, creating multi-technology cards with the following options. It is logistically possible to put all three technologies inside one card, although this is rare due to its impracticality and the costs involved in doing so. There are a number of big brands in the market which you will all recognize, and some of you will have sold some of them and some all of them. But you will probably be surprised to hear that with one exception, the technology inside the reader housings are surprisingly similar. HID is the exception to all of the others on this list by selling proprietary technology at both 125 kHz and at 13.56 MHz. ZK TECO readers all contain either EM4102 technology or MyFair. Impro, a previously proudly South African product, is now owned by HID and produces both EM4102 and MyFair products. GSC, which no longer exists in its current form but has an extensive install base around the country, utilizes almost exclusively EM4102 technology. Paxton Access readers will all contain either EM4102 or MyFair technology within them. IDEMIA has the broadest offering within the offerings available here, and its biometric range has the options for EM4102, MyFair, or HID's iClass. Where physical devices have well-known brands, so do the technologies which exist within them. Many share similar chipsets and can trace their genesis to the same parent chip and manufacturer. MyFair and Desfire, these are registered brands that belong to NXP. These have become the default terms for smart cards over time in the same way that Hoover, Heister and JIC tend to get used instead of vacuum, fork truck and bleach. The real truth is that if it does not have an NXP chip inside it, it cannot claim to be MyFair. Cards can be purchased on the open market from various sources. Compatible cards. Compatible cards have a technology inside which enables them to operate in the same way that a MyFair card would and are completely interchangeable with the licensed product. Because these compatible cards are not produced with a genuine NXP chip in an approved factory, they are typically cheaper than the genuine product. There are a number of factories and chip suppliers who offer these cards, but because of where and how they're produced, they come in a variety of levels of quality. You will have been exposed to some of these over time, and some of these problems include no warranties, poor consistency in performance, different levels of quality in card color, thickness, and durability. This is the trade-off for a compatible card. Sometimes this trade-off is acceptable. To most access control companies, any trade-offs are unacceptable. iClass performs in a very similar way to MyFair and Desfire and has various security levels built in the same way that MyFair and Desfire do. The only real difference is the availability and therefore the price of this product. These cards can only be purchased through the HID distribution network, and they can only be purchased from one source ultimately, and that is at HID. Okay, so now for salespeople, this is the fun part. Ordering the cards and where to order them from. The biggest issue with ordering cards is the complexity of knowing what to order, and this is typically the number one reason for avoiding the whole subject altogether. After all, it's nice and easy to sell a box, but less easy once you have to do something a little more complicated. We have now crossed this hurdle, and we now know what we want. There comes a new list of questions you'll need to know the answer to in order to ensure that you, A, are competitive, and B, you order the correct product for your client. If you have established that your customer needs an EM4102 card, this is easy. The product is off the shelf, requires no special encoding, and you require nothing more than just the information that it's an EM4102 card. If you've identified that the customer needs an HID prox card of some description, this is the most tricky of all the cards to order. It's the most complicated card, as the card does have some special encoding that HID provide for the card to guarantee a certain level of security. All of the following information will be required in order to order the card, primarily to make sure that it operates correctly with the system that is already in place. You're going to need 3 pieces of information. You will need to know the format number. You will need to know the facility or site code, and you'll need to know the number range the client requires. If any of this information is missing, the client doesn't have it, or you're unable to identify it, the easiest way to identify this information is to send a number of sample cards in. We'll test them, give you the information, and we're then able to order the cards and program them correctly for you. MyFair cards. This again is a relatively simple product to order. It's an off-the-shelf product, but does have a number of different variants and memory sizes. NXP tag info application that we talked about earlier in this module will give you the answer to the question that you're now asking. The questions will be, do you need 1K Classic or EV1, 4K Classic or EV1, Ultralight, Ultralight EV1, or possibly even Ultralight C. Desfire, just like MyFair, is an off-the-shelf product, but again with different memory sizes. It's a little bit easier with Desfire. The client will know whether he needs a 2K, 4K or an 8K card. If the client is unaware of which one he needs or which one he has in circulation, again, go to your default, NXP tag in. An increasingly common product in the market, HID's iClass, can only be purchased through an HID dealer and their network. And just like proximity cards, you will need to know the format number, facility or site code, and the number range required. If you're having any problems in sourcing these cards, then again, please speak to us. We can assist you, but all of these cards will be sourced through the official HID dealer network. I hope and trust that you found this module of some interest, and I feel sure there'll be some questions that will arise from it. In these instances, I would ask you to call me or email me, and I'll only be too pleased to assist you with filling in the blanks and helping you use this new knowledge to secure a greater number of card orders. Remember that in access control, the only consumable is in fact the card. Get this process right and the repeat card business can prove massively profitable. Thank you for your time. From me, John Lakin, and all of us at Cardzgroup Africa.